conclusion, how do the concepts of modern science reinforce the concept of SP, or Symbiotic Panentheism? They do not. What is really taking place is that SP is reinforcing modern science. Modern science, understanding what we see, has been leading us away from the idea that we are the center of attention, leading us into the direction that interdependence is a fundamental characteristic of existence. And if this is the case, it only makes sense that this fundamental characteristic of the universe might very well be a fundamental characteristic of our relationship to the causative force, or what religions call God. Symbiotic panentheism says exactly the same thing. Symbiosis means a closer interdependence. Panentheism means all in the causative force. Putting the words together gives us symbiotic panentheism, which in turn means two things. One, God is so big, the causative force, there is nowhere else we could be other than inside her, it, because this is nowhere else. Two, interdependence links us to the causative force. We need the causative force, and the causative force needs us, as is explained in process, open, and relational theologies. Our need for a causative force has been basically accepted by religions as being logical. A causative force, an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present force, needing us, on the other hand, has been rejected as ludicrous. But is it? Perhaps we are means to an end for the causative force. Perhaps the causative force is so powerful, knowing, and all-present that she was incapable of becoming even more so in her existing state. That in itself created a paradox. How could an entity be truly all-knowing if she did not know how to learn about things that did not exist, namely the future? In other words, how could she create truly original things? Would an entity that could not create ideas that had never before existed be truly all-powerful? If an entity found a way around this problem, found a way to create, to gain knowledge that never before existed, wouldn't she become even more aware than she was before, more powerful? Wouldn't this increased awareness be just another way of saying she was growing in awareness or presence, becoming more omnipresent? What does this have to do with us? Science points to the idea that we may be a part of this process through the idea of interdependence. And symbiotic panentheism reinforces this concept. Although it may seem that science and the theories postulated have rigorously anti-religious and oppositional towards theology over the last few centuries, it has not always been the case. In fact, there have, although few in number comparatively, have been interdisciplinary scholars who took both religion, theology, and science, and specifically conclusions within the academics of theology, very seriously. That post-modern human assumption that religion and science are at odds is, to say the least, quite a large assumption, because in some cases this is not true. Science and theology are only opposed to each other in the minds who have constructed and fabricated this assumption throughout history. John C. Polkinghorne, an English theoretical physicist, theologian, and Anglican priest, a prominent and leading voice explaining the relationship between science and religion or theology, who served as president of Queen's College at Cambridge from 1988 to 1996. Also, Spinoza's metaphysics has contributed greatly to what would later be acknowledged by none other than modern science pioneer Albert Einstein himself. Although Einstein was not explicit or dogmatic concerning religious beliefs, he did mention Spinoza's God as a legitimate worldview which was somewhat pantheistic in its reach. Baruch Spinoza believed that the universe consisted of just one thing, substance monism, which was absolutely infinite, self-caused, and eternal. And he called this substance God, or nature, which to him was one and the same, through which Panentheism arose. Four prominent names that can be mentioned are pioneers and contributors to Panentheism in all of its forms were Baruch Spinoza, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, Albert Einstein, and John C. Polkinghorne. A few quotes from Albert Einstein from The Merging of Spirit and Science. The most beautiful and most profound experience is the sensation of the mystical. It is the sower of all true science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. To know that what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their primitive forms. This knowledge, this feeling, is at the center of all true religiousness. And another, quote, "The religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. It should transcend personal God and avoid dogma and intricate theology, converging both the natural and the spiritual. It should be based on a religious sensing arising from the experience of all things natural and spiritual as a meaningful unity. Buddhism answers this description. If there is any religion that could cope with modern scientific needs, it would be Buddhism." Unquote. And a final quote from the year 1941. "But science can only be created by those who are thoroughly imbued with the aspiration toward truth and understanding. This source of feeling, however, springs from the sphere of religion. To this there also belongs the faith in the possibility that the regulations valid for the world of existence are rational, that is, comprehensible to reason. I cannot conceive of a genuine scientist without that profound faith. The situation may be expressed by an image. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind."